Hey, what's going on, guys? FlynnMasters coming at you with another video, and today I'll be officially beginning my new series of chef rankings from each season. For those of you that don't know, I did this for season 11 to get something out of rewatching that season, as I was going to do a Janelle's story video, and and after getting positive feedback on that video, I figured this would be a fun video to do for each season. So, and in some ways, a full circle moment for this channel, as you guys can now see my thoughts on literally every contestant in the show's history. So, yeah, let's get right into this with my least favorite chef of season 1, and that is still Jeff. And like I said, the big thing for Jeff is that not only does he just seem douchey, but him quitting after getting yelled at when I'm sure the producers hammered home to the cast to expect this. Like, again, imagine if there were other chefs like Jeff this season who quit right away, This season would have never really worked, and Hell's Kitchen likely wouldn't have continued after that, So... And that is just unforgivable to me. So, while the person above him, I can argue, like, is all around like a worse, like from what we saw in the show. Disrespecting Ramsay is probably the worst thing he can do, in my opinion. Much less quit 3 episodes into the series. Now on to who most people have as their least favorite chef of the season, with that being Jessica. And I do agree that she's a pretty awful person. Like, she even made Jeff look good when she didn't help him when he was in so much pain. And in general, just had a whining attitude at times, or sometimes had a holier than thou attitude, showed disrespect to Ramsay at times, so like just not really much positives about Jessica. Made it farther than she should have, honestly. Well, I mean, you could argue that, but still, the fact that she's the final 3, like, easily one of the, probably one of, if not the worst final boot ever. But despite all these negatives, at least she didn't quit and could actually handle the yelling from Ramsay. Even if she did show him attitude at times, at least she didn't quit like Jeff, and that's the only reason why she's above Jeff here at number 11. On to an ambiguous chef now, but for me personally, I've always found Andrew a lot more unlikable than likable. And, like, he had a nice little face turn at the end of his run, but, like, even then, he did kind of come off as whiny, especially in his boot episode. Like, I can understand his frustrations with Ralph there. But I'm sorry, him getting interrupted by Ramsay mid-sentence was super satisfying, in my opinion, and which obviously led to his elimination. But yeah, he was definitely a whiny brat throughout the first couple of episodes of the season, and that's honestly, to me, why he was able to last as long as he did, was due to being good TV and an easy person for Ramsay to mess with. And again, I know he had his moments, like especially him busting his ass for Ralph, despite him hating Ralph at that point in the finale, but just a bit too whiny, and for that matter, a bit too cocky as well, who just could not back it up in the kitchen. So I'm just not that high on Andrew, to be honest. On to someone who probably should have survived over Andrew, with that being Mary Ellen. And yeah, what else is there to really say about her? Like, pretty much nothing. But at least, like, she isn't unlikable like the 3 chefs below her, which is why she's relatively high here at number 9, despite being extremely forgettable. On to another very forgettable chef this season. In fact, the very first boot in the show's history, in Carolann. But again, the reason why she's such a forgettable first boot is due to not being that bad as other first boots who are, memorable for being donkeys. Again, I've been pretty vocal about her deserving a second chance and being one of the better first boots in Hell's Kitchen history, who had a lot of potential, as she had one of, if not like the only good signature dish, or at least the signature dish that was least bad. So yeah, while she obviously doesn't add much to this season, I do respect her as a first boot, and that's why she lands again relatively higher at number 8. At number 7 is Wendy Joe, and I'll be very frank, the only reason why she's this high is due to giving us one of the funniest moments in the show's history, arguably the first iconic scene in the show's history as well. With that being, I thought cold water was supposed to boil faster than hot water. Just so freaking iconic, and so thankful for Wendy Joe being that stupid. My God, is Ramsay's reaction priceless. At number 6 is Jimmy, and I know Jimmy is one of the worst blackjackers ever. I mean, he could have very easily been the first boot, for God's sakes, and absolutely should have been eliminated at the final 7. But I do respect his fighting determination, and one of those rare gentle giant archetypes in Hell's Kitchen that, as you guys see throughout these rankings for each season, I really do like that archetype. I mean, what is there to truly dislike about Jimmy, other than he really put a taint on the blackjack prestige very early on into the Hell's Kitchen series. But as a character, a very cool and chill dude. On to the top 5, and at number 5 is Chris. And to me, the thing with Chris is, yeah, he seemed pretty cocky during the signature dish, but pretty much the entire rest of the season, he was chill and one of the better chefs in, frankly, the entire competition, and never boasted about his executive chef title, despite Ramsay being on his ass about that. And that ultimately that was ultimately the reason why Michael screwed him over in the end, because he was such big competition. So yeah, I've always felt bad for Chris with just how ruthless Ramsay was to him and his elimination in general, when in reality, he really didn't deserve that. He was a talented and totally chill dude. So yeah, with that, between him and Jimmy, I just kind of feel a bit more bad for Chris. So, and thinks he should have been the blackjack instead of Jimmy. So, may not have been top 5 in real life, but he gets a top 5 spot in my list. On to number 4, and this is another chef that I'm sure a lot of people are a lot lower on, but I do have Ralph here. And as I've noticed throughout these rankings, again through the series, like I respect most chefs who can make it far in Hell's Kitchen. Like unless you're a Russell type figure, like I'm always gonna be higher on them compared to a forgettable chef, even if that forgettable chef seems more pleasant as a pleasant person, right? So. Because Ralph definitely, let's be frank, Ralph could definitely be super arrogant at times, and I'll admit it was his fault at the final 6 service for sure, and the way he really screwed over Andrew there. For me, I personally thought it was pretty funny, honestly, but I do see why he kind of came across as unlikable. But to me, with him being one of the only legit chefs this season, and indeed being a damn good one, like he just brought so much prestige to the show, and in some ways made Hell's Kitchen what it is today, right? You know, if we just had a bunch of like, you know, what they're going for this season with a bunch of wannabe chefs, like it probably would not be on today, right? So yeah, this placement is definitely more of a respect thing for sure. On to the top 3, and despite being the second boot, I don't think it should be too surprising that I have Dewberry this high. I mean, come on, the dude was as lovable as can be, and unlike Jeff, you know, despite the competition being absolutely brutal on him, he didn't throw in the towel and kept fighting in spite. You gotta love that. You know, I love his finale performance. That was hilarious. So, say what you will about this, but you know, you could even argue that he was Hell's Kitchen's first donkey as well. So, I mean, it's just hard to say anything mean about Dewberry. On to number 2, and I'm sure most people would have this person at number 1, but Elsie is my second favorite chef of season 1. And I kind of touch on this, like while I love Elsie, obviously, her underdog run didn't do as much for me as it does for other people. Because again, from the very start, like she seemed like one of the better chefs and didn't get berated for her lack of experience, like say Julia or Nikki, right? So, but at the end of the day, her making it to the final 4 with literally no line experience in general is insane for sure. Like I cannot deny that and totally respect it. Of course, a beyond lovable person, kept a smile on her face despite the brutalness of Hell's Kitchen. Her goodbye to Ramsay is one of the first true emotional scenes in the show's history. Like, there's a reason why she's considered the first fan favorite in Hell's Kitchen. And at number 1, my favorite chef of Hell's Kitchen's first season is the winner in Michael Ray. And like I said, while yes, the schemish play might not be for everyone, with me being a huge Survivor fan as well, and going back to watch the season, like it is just so interesting to see him play the game the way he did, and literally break Hell's Kitchen for the better, as it turned it into Ramsay's show, as opposed to like a game show, which we can all agree is for the best, right? Like we literally might not have Hell's Kitchen on to this day had it not been for Michael Ray, and that's why he's not only my favorite chef this season, but one of my favorite winners and chefs of all time. So there you have it, guys, my ranking of every season 1 contestant. Let me know how you would rank these chefs in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe and like button to support the channel. And with all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.